Hey, what's going on, guys? This is our Oh wait, that's not what this video is? Hey, what's going on, guys? This is our Redux, and welcome back to another technology video. Now, I haven't done a video in a while. Sorry about that. I've been sick. So if I sound a little bit off, a little bit deeper, that's probably why. So today's video will be in 8K resolution because, well, I can't find a reason not to do that, so I'm doing it. Also, you know the standard USB 3? Yeah, that's a pretty freaking old standard, and it came out in 2008, and it gained a widespread adoption in like 2011, 2012. Of course, there were motherboards probably in 2009 with it, but the only ones I'm aware of came out in 2011 and 2012, so whatever. Things have really struggled to saturate the speed of USB 3 for eons. Even today, it's difficult for manufacturers to produce a flash drive that can saturate that connection. And that really pisses me off. But there's some that actually do saturate the connection. Some by some unconventional means, and some by some conventional means. And some are pretty cheap and a good deal for the storage you get. So let's take a look at some. And before I continue, I probably should say none of this is sponsored. I'm not big enough to get sponsored anyway. So let's get into it. So first, I'd like to actually illustrate the problem a little bit better. This is the Dell Latitude 5490, a decent-ish 2018 PC laptop. You can meet it in one of my other 1 hour long videos where I cover the whole thing. The screen is crap, but everything else is okay, other than it runs Windows. But it'll do for this demonstration since it has multiple USB 3.0 ports, and this can saturate that connection. So we know it won't be the host machine at fault when it fails. In this B-roll shot by the Lumix S5 II, you can see this is just an ordinary Windows computer that, of course, wants to update for nebulous reasons. Let's plug in a generic USB flash drive by SanDisk. Actually, I have a few here. One's just a 32GB USB 3.0 flash drive. I forget what the name is for it. SanDisk Ultra. And another one is a SanDisk Cruiser something, which I think is a USB 3.1. This is like 32 gigs as well. And this one is a 512 gig USB 3.1 drive by PNY actually. But let's plug in one of the SanDisk ones. Windows recognizes it. This to me looks like the Xbox 360 formatted one. Let's try to find a big file. I think I deleted all my big files, so we're gonna have to go copy one from a bigger drive. Don't pay attention to the one I'm plugging in right now. It will come up later. It's just faster than copying from the network. Ah, fucking Windows. Actually, now that I'm doing it, it's actually copying off the drive slower, so I think Windows is fudging this a little bit. Okay, so we have our giant file, 9 gigs. So let's copy this and let's paste it to the USB drive I plugged in. Fine, I'll format it first. Dingus Windows. Winorium drive. Fine, just Winorium. Now. Oh, shut up. I've already unplugged that drive. What the hell, Windows? Alright, let's go paste. As we can see, even though this is a USB 3.0 drive, this drive is writing at very unsavory speeds. Of course, write speeds are going to be less to some degree than the read speeds on any given drive for the most part, so this is kind of expected, but it's just wavering all over the place. Just the quality of this drive is kind of ass. Well, I don't want to wait for this to finish, because if it can't sustain anything, I don't want it. So, fuck off. I no longer care about you. Get out. That's barely an improvement over a USB 2.0 drive that's actually good. That's pretty awful for a USB 3 drive. If it can't even beat USB 2, what's the point? So let's plug in another drive. Another SanDisk USB 3 drive. It's a tiny one this time. I actually named this one something kind of similar. I named it Weenor. Let's copy the talking heads. Oh, come on. It's really... Oh, this is the motherboard flashing one that I had to format as FAT32. So let's reformat this as NTFS this time. Let's give it a fighting chance. I'll copy the file onto it. So the writing speed of this drive seems to be a little bit above the USB 2 theoretical speeds, which is kind of awful as it's now dipping below that about halfway. So yeah, this drive is definitely still ass, but it at least is sustaining what it is getting. So at least you'll know how much time it's going to take, but the time that it does take is too much. So let's move on from this drive. I'm not even going to bother reading from it because it's going to be a little bit faster and it's going to sustain for a little bit longer. It's not really worth testing. I'll also say again that it's not going to be this machine at fault other than it's running Windows because, well, the SSD in this machine is actually fast enough to sustain about half a gigabyte per second of throughput for like an entire like 50 gig file. So I know there's nothing wrong with the SSD in this computer. All right, let's try another one that's actually seems a little bit more promising, at least to me, because, well, I paid more for it and it's by a different company and it's bigger, not in physical size, but storage size. This is a 512 gig PNY USB 3.1 flash drive. It's one of those little nub ones that only has the handle. See, this is 512 on it and USB 3.1. And it's also used, as you can see, because there's lines on it. Well, it's because I use this thing. Let's copy the file onto this one and see how fast it goes. Let's plug it in. Gets recognized. And let's copy Talking Heads onto it. So right away, this jumps up to, I don't know, 150 megabytes a second, which is about a third of what it should be, and then it dips almost instantly after about a gig to below 1 megabyte a second write. That is truly awful, and I'm not sure what's causing this. I don't know if I've just written so much to this drive over the course of 2 years that it's just borked itself, but yeah, this is obviously not going to work. However, it has jumped back up a little bit. That happens occasionally. Now it's writing out about a quarter of what a USB 2 drive should be writing at, and of course jump back up, and it's going to do this off and on throughout the thing. And this just straight up is not worth using unless you really have to, because as you can see right now, it is writing at 355 kilobytes, and it's staying there until it jumps back up again, but it's gonna stay there for a certain amount of time, and you don't know how long that is. Off with your head. It also gets pretty hot. This got hotter than any of the other ones while doing these tests, so yeah. I don't know what the hell's wrong with this drive, but obviously it's having some difficulty with basic tasks. So maybe I was being a little bit unfair, trying to trust cheaper drives with my data and copying to it reliably. Well, not for this one, because this, I actually tried to spend more money on this one. This is a 256 gig Samsung drive that actually has USB-C as its main interface, but it also has a USB 3 adapter built into it. You can just attach it to anything. So, you know, that's really good, and this has served me pretty well, and I don't really have many complaints about this other than that it just doesn't saturate. Again, the USB 3.0 speeds. I tried to spend a little bit more money on this. This was about $50 when I bought it about 2 years ago, and it served me well, but it's still not saturating the speeds. So let's take a look at that. Plug it in. There might be some random crap on here. Yep, there's Windows supports. This is Mac formatted. Yeah, okay. God damn it. Let's copy the same file onto it. So in my testing, it'll sustain about 100 megabytes a second for a while, but it will dip eventually. It's actually sustaining for a lot longer than I thought it would. Can you tell why I trusted this drive more than pretty much any of the others except for one? So it's almost done, and as you can see, it's transferred about 9 gigs of data just straight 100 megabytes a second pretty much the entire way. The average is about 100. In reality, it went from about 106 to 94, and it wavered about there, so the average is going to be about 100 megabytes a second write. And the read speeds, let's test that actually. I'll copy this to my downloads folder, is going to be more. It's probably because it's cached. Let's stop this and unplug it and then replug it. So that should invalidate the cache. I learned that from Cathode Radio, actually. So let's copy this to pictures now. And as we can see, this is actually almost saturating the USB 3.0 connection. My camera is not focusing. As you can see, it saturated the USB 3 connection until about a third the way through, and then it dipped to about 150 megabytes a second, you know, as it filled up the buffer. I'm hearing some very wacky noises from this computer as it's doing these operations. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Yeah, not sure what that's about. Maybe the fan's having difficulties, but anyway, that did saturate the connection for about a third of the read transfer. And that's pretty good. And that's because this probably has a cache on it. But yeah, that's a decent drive I actually would recommend getting one of these, especially if you have a computer that has only USB-C on it, but you also have other computers that need normal USB. This is a very good, compact, good performing option, although it's a little pricey, but you get what you pay for. So that's a decent drive. But of course, it didn't saturate the connection for the entire transfer. So let's look at something that might. So the internal drive of this machine is an internal SSD. I think it's a SATA SSD, but it's still an SSD. And those can saturate a USB 3 connection no problem. They can probably read a gigabyte per second nowadays. Actually, no, SATA 3 is 6 gigabits per second, so that's about 600 megabytes per second in reality, like in real world tests. So yeah, those can definitely saturate a USB 3.0 connection, which is around 400. So let's just stop fighting the feeling. Let's just use a normal SSD, an internal SSD that you would put inside of this computer. Let's just keep it external to it and just use an adapter that goes between SATA 3 and USB 3 or USB-C. I love this thing, and I actually did use this to transfer files between computers because it actually does work really well, surprisingly well. And I was even able to boot off of this SSD using this adapter through USB. That's crazy. I have not seen anything else that can really do that and saturate the connection at the same time. Of course, plugging it in is a little bit awkward, so you can get this working. There we go. The SSD is all the way out here. Don't pay attention to that. But as we can see, this is actually a boot disk from a Windows drive. So let's try to copy a file here and see how long it takes. This is a pretty heavily used SSD that I got for $10 at an electronics flea market in San Jose. So obviously it's not performing the best, but trust me, if you put a new SSD in here and try to saturate the USB 3 connection, it would do it no problems if you got a decent SSD. This one's old, used, and probably half broken, so it's saturating about half the connection, but it is saturating half of the USB 3 connection for the entire transfer. It doesn't slow down. That's because it's an actual decent Western Digital SSD. So there you go. So yeah, that's really good, really cool, and really awesome. And this is a great option if you need cheap storage or you need a boot off of an external SSD. I mean, you can tell what's possible with this. Of course, some things don't work, but what else can you do? So that's a very cheap and decent alternative to buying what I can say is the best flash drive in all history, basically. Well, because I haven't encountered anything better than it. But that's not this. What happens when a company actually tries to achieve something that no one else has done? Well, either they have their pants fly off, or they actually achieve what they're going for. This time they did achieve what they were going for. This is a Buffalo SSD. Yeah, it looks like a flash drive, and it pretty much is effectively a flash drive, but they call it an SSD. Not sure why. It's probably because of how insane this is and how good it is, but this is a 2 terabyte flash drive, and it's a bit thicker than a conventional, flash drive, and it's a bit weird looking and a bit creaky and plasticky, but it feels okay, and it outperforms everything we've seen today by far. It'll sustain the USB 3.0 transfer rates perfectly without fail, given the machine isn't junk that you're using it with and the interface isn't iffy. This is actually the drive that I said was faster than transferring over the network. This is where I grabbed that big file from. So let's plug it in and see it work. And as you can see, it really is 2 terabytes. So I'm going to copy the Talking Heads file on here again. Windows right now is being AIDS, so it's only showing 230 megabytes a second transfer rate. I'm not sure what's going on there. But when I tested this in one of my other videos, a video that was actually about the Dell laptop I'm doing this on, it did every single time sustain the 400 megabytes a second transfer rates of USB 3.0. So I know this does it, just something is keeping it from doing it here. Probably Windows itself, because Windows is ass. Let's try copying off a different file. And there you go. It's about sustains the USB 3.0 transfer rates. The only limit is probably Windows and whatever chipset this is using, or the fact that Windows is trying to update in the background. Who the hell knows? But yeah, this will always sustain the USB 3.0 transfer rates, and it's a 2 terabyte flash drive. And it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It was only about $80 when we bought it. And I think it's about $50 now for a 2 terabyte flash drive that performs this well. That's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to show you guys this thing because I wanted to make a video on it for a while. So yeah, this has been iRead Redux. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next live stream, short, or video, whatever that may be. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your evening.